Hello, today is Wednesday, October 9th, and welcome to the episode 370 of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you quickly up to speed on national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. I'm Martha Miller and NSI's Deputy Executive Director, and I'm joined today by NSI Fellow Jessica Jones and Senior Fellows Lester Munson and Morgan Vina. Today, we are focusing on the rapidly evolving security threats across Europe, with a closer look at Russia's hybrid warfare, Iran's covert actions, and the resurgence of ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Europe is facing an unprecedented convergence of security challenges. Just this week, MI5's director revealed that Russia's intelligence services, crippled by the expulsion of over 750 diplomats, are now relying on low-level criminals to carry out sabotage and espionage. The Kremlin has turned to using proxies like cyber criminals and arsonists to sow chaos on European streets. In addition, Russia's GRU has been linked to dozens of attacks, including sabotage targeting critical infrastructure and Ukrainian-linked businesses in the UK, Germany, and France. In one recent attack, Russian operatives allegedly set fire to a Berlin factory building that are building air defense systems. Iran, too, is stepping up its covert operations. At the same time, traditional terrorist threats are emerging. These combined threats, state-sponsored sabotage, hybrid warfare, and resurgence of terrorism, are pushing Europe's security apparatus to its limits. Lester, can we start with you?
Yes, Martha, we can. We can start with me. Martha, shocking news developments here that Iran and Russia are acting like thugs in the world, both covertly and overtly. Meanwhile, we have a White House that is concerned about escalation and things like that, and appears to buy these ludicrous stories that Russia might use a nuclear weapon in Ukraine. More evidence coming out that this administration just has misestimated a whole bunch of things. Iran's willingness to join the normal international community and not be a rogue nation. Russia's obviously fake willingness to use a nuclear weapon in Ukraine. So we've had a lot of bad judgments over the last 3.5 years, in my view, and perhaps not great judgments over the last 7.5, or indeed even 15.5 years. So we've struggled with this question. I do think at the end of the day, when you're dealing with a bully like Tehran or Moscow, the only thing you can really do is punch them in the face. The Russians in particular only understand brute force, and they fear it and respect it. The Iranians might be a little more ideologically or theologically motivated around it, but it may be the best approach with them as well. So I think we need to stop worrying about escalation, start picking a couple of battles we can win and win them, whether we talk about it or not. I think in a way it might be more effective if we don't talk about it, just let some people suddenly disappear or explode. And gosh, let the other guys wonder what happened.
And Jess, could you share your thoughts about this shift in using petty criminals, essentially, to do the bidding of Russia and Iran?
Yeah, I mean, I think, to some of Les's comments, this isn't just, during the Biden administration. There have been growing a number of assassination or other attempted threats long before the last 3.5 years. So this has been growing over time. I think, it's great bringing public awareness. I think that, the UK, the stories are coming out around, foiling 20 attempted attempts in the last 2 years alone, which is, for the public who is unaware of these threats, that's a large number. And I think this growing reliance on kind of the criminal networks, it has, there's two sides to it. On one side, it makes it harder to track operatives, like you pointed out, thrown out of the UK. Folks were not following, so you've got criminals already enmeshed and living in a society. But on the other hand, you've kind of got some bumbling idiots who you're relying on to, succeed at complicated tasks. And so you see a number of failures. And so I think you see Iran and Russia throwing anything against the wall. And I think punching in the face a bully, I've never been a bully or a bullier, so I don't know less about that theory. But I would say, perhaps though, if Iran and Russia are losing on the battlefield, you might actually see more attempts here, on the homeland in different countries, and the threat might actually grow.
So does it help? So what about these prisoner swaps that we've had? Is this helping the situation, or is it just ultimately encouraging the Kremlin, for example, when we trade big time criminals for your average citizen. Morgan, would you like to chime in?
Well, look, the criminal element here is interesting, and it certainly doesn't help. But I'm going to take a different approach with this, Martha. And this is not the question you asked, but it's a question that I'm going to comment on.
Not even subtle. Not even subtle.
Blatant. We're just going to go blatant here.
She's not putting up with your bullying, Martha.
So look, I'm going to circle back to Les and Jess's point here in a second. But look, this MI5 report is, the UK's intelligence report. It's not too different from the annual intelligence report that we release. And generally speaking, I'm not entirely surprised about the findings here. Yes, Iran, Russia continue to have, malign influence outside of, their borders. That's no surprise. But what the big takeaway that I, see here is the global war on terror is not over. It wasn't too long ago that, Ariana Grande had a concert in which 22 people were killed in a terrorist attack. Taylor Swift had to cancel her concert in Vienna this summer. So the terrorist threat is still very real. ISIS is a threat. We saw the terrorist attack in Russia. We've seen multiple reports and threats against European countries. And so I think if you take a step back and look at, this proliferation here of threats that we're seeing, it's coming from, frankly, Afghanistan, a country that we just completely abdicated leadership and withdrew, 3 years ago. And I think the Biden administration has completely failed to curb this threat, and as a result, it has really proliferated. So ultimately, I don't think that global war on terror is going to end any soon. Yes, we have competition with Russia and China, but that is in addition to what we're seeing against terrorism.
So either Jess or Les, what do you think Russia is trying to achieve in these various measures these active measures they're taking in Western Europe?
My guess is it's regime defense, and it's keeping Putin in power. He's grabbed hold of power illegitimately through illegitimate means. He's been there for 20 years. He's worried about getting stabbed in the back by one of his colleagues. He needs to be taking the fight outside of the Russian borders to kind of keep the Russian people on edge and on the balls of their feet. It's a distraction for him. It's how he's staying in power. He's attacking outside forces as a way to keep things stable inside. And so you punch him in the face, that makes him more vulnerable back home. It makes him less willing to take these steps outside his borders. It makes him less willing to invade Ukraine for a fourth or a fifth time. So we just need to be real hard-eyed about this stuff. This is not it's not super complicated. It's a tough world out there. It always has been. We need to act with strength, and when we do act, we need to act effectively. We need to stop throwing out nostrums and begging people to stop doing things, and instead act in a way that is dispositive. Take someone off the board, change the dynamic. We have the ability to do that. We choose not to do it. And I think it's a mistake. And I think we're like kind of Morgan was insinuating there, like this stems from a very bad decision, a very bad pullout from Afghanistan when the world kind of saw at least the current administration for what it really is, which is unwilling to back up its statements with the actual exercise of American power. I'm not calling for a new ground war anywhere or anything like that. But when someone threatens you, you take them out. You find a place, you define the battle of your choosing, and you act in a way that's best for you. We shouldn't be shy about that. We shouldn't apologize for it. And people need to recognize, like, this is going to keep going on until we actually start to act.
Wait, so let's to be clear, are you calling for targeted assassinations within some of these nation states?
Oh, I didn't say that out loud.
Okay, you said some people. Okay, you said some people need to disappear. I'm just wondering what punch in the face means.
Sometimes you just stop hearing from people.
You know, Les, if Dylan ever gets bullied on the playground, I'm going to have you give her a pep talk.
Yeah.
Well, or even better, teach how to jab and then come in with the left hook.
Yeah.
There's no better response to a bully than a punch in the nose. I promise.
Yeah, and then when they're down, then you step on their toes, right? So they can't get up. Like,
Well,
So do any of you believe that these these attacks in Western Europe are meant to intimidate our allies into when deciding on how much they would support Ukraine?
I don't know if it's that. I think it's, to your point, Martha, keeping the security apparatus in Europe busy and focused on other things and trying to track down operatives or criminal elements to try to foil whatever attempted attacks are about to occur. So I'm not sure it's more about scaring. I think it's about scaring the dissidents and activists that live in these countries that are exiles. I think that is absolutely like, we're going to find you no matter where you live. You should still be scared of us. But I'm not sure it's scare tactic for those governments. I'm not sure that would work either.
Well, I think that's a wrap. I appreciate our panelists today and the entire Fault Lines team. Thanks so much to Devlin Burney, Carl Jennings, and the NSI staff for their help in producing today's episode. Join us again Friday, October 11th, for another episode of Fault Lines. Fault Lines is now on YouTube, so check out our channel for a video of today's episode. If you like what you heard or saw, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe.